The gunshot echoed through the hospital corridor, and Claire Bennett knew her brother's life depended on a monster's mercy. 26 years old, drowning in debt she never created, she stood before Nathan Calloway, the paralyzed heir to Chicago's most feared mafia family. His dead eyes assessed her from his wheelchair, while armed men blocked every exit. "Marry me," he said, voice cold as winter, "or your brother dies tonight." But as Claire's hands trembled over the contract that would cage her forever, she saw something that didn't fit: the precise muscle tone in his supposedly useless legs. This man was hiding something deadly. If you want to see how Claire survives this nightmare and whether love can bloom in the darkest places, stay until the end. And drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story reaches. The fluorescent lights of St. Catherine's Hospital buzzed overhead like angry wasps as Claire Bennett scrubbed her hands for the third time that hour. Her fingers were raw, cracked at the knuckles from constant washing, but she couldn't stop. Cleaning was control. Cleaning was the only thing she could control anymore. "Claire, you're bleeding again." Marissa, the head nurse, touched her shoulder gently. "Go home. You've been here 16 hours. Claire looked down at her hands. Pink water swirled down the drain, diluted blood from the splits in her skin. She should feel it, should care. But the numbness that had settled into her bones 3 months ago, when her father's gambling debts became her burden, when the men with cold eyes started following her, when her baby brother's leukemia came back with a vengeance, had taken even that from her. "I'm fine," Claire said, the lie automatic. "Thomas needs me for the overnight shift." Thomas, 8 years old, dying. The only family she had left since their father put a bullet in his own head rather than face the people he owed. The coward had left her with nothing but debts that multiplied like cancer cells, and a little boy who asked why his hair was falling out again. Marissa's eyes were too kind. Claire hated kindness now. It made her want to break. "The treatment center called again," Marissa said quietly. "They need the payment by Friday, or they're releasing him from the program." Friday. 3 days. $80,000 she didn't have, couldn't borrow, couldn't steal fast enough, even if she were the kind of person who stole. Claire had already sold everything: her mother's jewelry, her car, her dignity in the form of 3 jobs that left her hollow-eyed and shaking. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. "I'll figure it out," Claire said. Another lie. She was getting good at those. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Unknown number. Her stomach dropped because unknown numbers only meant one thing anymore: her father's creditors calling in debts, circling like sharks that smelled blood in the water. She let it go to voicemail, then immediately regretted it when the phone buzzed again, and again, and again. On the 4th call, she answered. "Miss Bennett?" The voice was male, professional, utterly devoid of emotion. "My employer would like to meet with you. Tonight." "I don't know who you are or what you want, but we're outside St. Catherine's Hospital, East Entrance. You have 5 minutes to collect your things and come quietly, or we'll come inside and make a scene that will cost you your job. Your brother is in room 304, correct? It would be unfortunate if he were disturbed during his rest." The line went dead. Claire's hand shook so violently she nearly dropped the phone. They knew where Thomas was. They knew his room number. The debt collectors had been getting more aggressive, showing up at her apartment, her work, leaving notes that promised broken bones and worse. But this was different. This was a threat wrapped in silk, delivered with the kind of calm that came from absolute power. She had 5 minutes. Marissa was watching her, concern etched across her weathered face. "Claire? What's wrong?" "I have to go." Claire stripped off her scrubs, pulled on her street clothes. Jeans worn thin at the knees, a sweater with a hole in the sleeve, sneakers that squeaked on linoleum. The uniform of someone circling the drain. "Can you check on Thomas? I'll be back soon." "How soon?" Claire didn't answer because she didn't know. Didn't know if she'd be back at all. The Chicago night hit her like a fist when she pushed through the East Entrance doors. October wind cut through her thin sweater, carrying the smell of rain and exhaust, and something darker underneath. Fear, maybe. Her own fear leaking out through her pores. A black SUV idled at the curb. Tinted windows. No plates. Or rather, the kind of missing plates that meant whoever owned this vehicle didn't need them because they owned the people who would ticket them. A man stood beside the rear door, built like a wall, wearing a suit that probably cost more than her yearly salary. He opened the door without a word. Claire stood frozen on the sidewalk. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but where would she go? They knew where Thomas was. They knew where she worked. Running would only make it worse. She got in the car. The interior smelled like leather and expensive cologne. Two men sat across from her on the facing seat. More walls in suits, hands folded, faces blank. The door closed with a solid thunk that sounded like a coffin ceiling. The SUV pulled away from the curb smoothly, merging into traffic like a shark sliding through dark water. "Where are we going?" Claire's voice came out smaller than she wanted. Neither man answered. They didn't even look at her, just stared straight ahead like she was cargo, not a person, not worth acknowledging. The drive took 20 minutes that felt like 20 hours. Chicago blurred past the windows. Her city, the place she'd lived her whole life, suddenly foreign and threatening. They moved through downtown, past the glittering towers where people who mattered lived their lives. Then into older neighborhoods where the buildings crouched low and suspicious, where money still flowed but in darker currents. Finally, they turned through a gate that opened like a mouth. The estate beyond was massive, a Gothic mansion that belonged in some European horror film, not the middle of Chicago. Gardens stretched into darkness, manicured within an inch of their lives. Security lights illuminated stone pathways. Cameras tracked their progress from every angle. This wasn't a home. This was a fortress. The SUV stopped in front of marble steps that led to doors tall enough for giants. The walls in suits got out first, then gestured for Claire to follow. Her legs barely worked. Fear had turned her bones to water, but she forced herself to move, to climb the steps, to walk through doors that opened silently, revealing an entrance hall that could swallow her entire apartment building. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, paintings that were probably worth more than her brother's medical bills. And silence. The thick, oppressive silence of a place where screaming wouldn't help because no one would care. This way. One of the men led her deeper into the mansion, through hallways lined with ancestral portraits. Stern-faced men and cold-eyed women who looked like they'd never smiled in their lives. Claire's sneakers squeaked on polished floors. Her breathing echoed. Everything about this place was designed to make her feel small, insignificant, crushable. They stopped in front of double doors made of dark wood carved with symbols Claire didn't recognize. The man knocked twice, then opened the door and gestured her inside. The study beyond was all dark wood and darker intentions. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves lined two walls. A fireplace big enough to burn a body crackled with flames that cast dancing shadows. And in front of the fire, facing away from her, was a wheelchair. "Miss Bennett," said a voice from the wheelchair, male, cultured, cold enough to frost glass. "Thank you for coming." The wheelchair turned and Claire got her first look at Nathan Calloway. She'd seen his photo in the newspapers, the articles about the tragic accident that paralyzed the heir to one of Chicago's most powerful families. But photos didn't capture the physical presence of him, the way he seemed to draw all the light in the room toward himself and swallow it. Mid-30s, devastatingly handsome in the way of classical sculpture, all sharp angles and perfect symmetry. Dark hair swept back from a face that could have been carved from marble. And eyes the color of winter sky, cold and assessing and utterly without mercy. Those eyes traveled over Claire slowly, cataloging every detail, her secondhand clothes, her raw hands, the purple shadows under her eyes from too many sleepless nights. She felt exposed, dissected, found wanting. "Do you know who I am?" Nathan asked. "Yes." Claire's voice barely worked. "Nathan Calloway." "And do you know why you're here?" No. A lie. She knew exactly why she was here. Her father's debts, the money that flowed from desperate gamblers into the pockets of people like the Calloways, who owned everything from legitimate businesses to the darkest corners of Chicago's underworld. She'd known, somewhere in the back of her mind, that this day would come. That running out of money would mean facing the people her father had stolen from. Nathan's lips curved into something that might have been a smile on someone who understood humor. On him, it looked like a threat. "Your father owed my family a considerable sum of money," Nathan said. $230,000 to be precise, plus interest. He borrowed it to pay for your brother's first treatment cycle, then gambled the rest away trying to win enough to pay it back. Claire's stomach lurched. 230,000. She'd known her father gambled, but this was beyond anything she'd imagined. He's dead, Claire said. You can't collect from a dead man. No, but debts pass to the next of kin. Nathan's fingers drummed on the arm of his wheelchair, a casual gesture that somehow felt calculated, dangerous. Which would be you? I don't have that kind of money. I don't have any money. I know, I've reviewed your financial situation quite thoroughly. 3 jobs, all minimum wage. Student loans you'll never pay off. Medical bills that would drown a small country. You're buried, Miss Bennett, completely and utterly buried. Each word landed like a blow. Claire wanted to argue, to defend herself, but what was the point? He was right. She was drowning, had been drowning for months, and now the water was closing over her head. So what happens now? Claire asked. You kill me? That won't get you your money back. No, Nathan agreed. Killing you would be pointless. However, I have a proposition that would satisfy the debt and provide you with the resources to save your brother's life. Hope flared in Claire's chest, bright and painful. She crushed it immediately. People like Nathan Calloway didn't offer salvation. They offered different flavors of damnation. What kind of proposition? Nathan pressed a button on his wheelchair. A door opened and a woman entered, older, severe, carrying a leather folder like a weapon. She placed the folder on the desk beside Nathan, then retreated without a word. Inside this folder is a contract, Nathan said. If you sign it, your father's debt will be forgiven. More importantly, your brother will be enrolled in the best treatment program in the country, all expenses paid. He'll receive care from the finest doctors money can buy. He'll live, Miss Bennett. I can promise you that. Claire's heart hammered against her ribs. What do you want in exchange? You. The word hung in the air between them, heavy with implications. I don't understand, Claire said, though she was starting to. Marriage, Nathan said simply. You will become my wife. You will live in this house, attend family functions, play the role of devoted spouse. In exchange, your brother receives treatment and you receive a very comfortable life. Claire's mind reeled. Marriage. To this man, this stranger, this... You're asking me to sell myself. I'm offering you a business arrangement, one that benefits us both. How does this benefit you? You're Nathan Calloway. You could marry anyone. Something flickered in Nathan's eyes. Pain, maybe, or anger, gone too quickly to identify. My family requires that I marry. Soon. My grandfather is dying, and the succession of our business interests depends on certain appearances being maintained. A wife demonstrates stability, commitment. It silences certain questions about my capability to lead. Because he was in a wheelchair, Claire realized. Because people looked at him and saw weakness, damaged goods, someone who couldn't control his own body, let alone a criminal empire. The marriage was armor, a way to prove he was still viable. And if I refuse, Claire asked, then your father's debt remains. My associates will begin collection procedures. You'll be bankrupted, imprisoned for fraud when we manufacture evidence of your involvement in your father's schemes. Your brother will be removed from his treatment program immediately. He'll die, Miss Bennett, painfully, slowly, while you watch from a cell, unable to help him. The cruelty of it stole Claire's breath. This was power, absolute, crushing, inescapable. Nathan wasn't offering her a choice. He was offering her the illusion of choice while holding a gun to everything she loved. How long? Claire's voice shook. How long would this marriage last? Until my grandfather dies and succession is secured. A year. Perhaps 2. And then? Divorce. Quietly arranged. You'll receive a substantial settlement that will ensure your brother's continued care and your own financial security. You'll walk away with everything you need to build a new life. It sounded too good to be true because it was too good to be true. Claire had learned the hard way that nothing came without a price, and the price Nathan was asking, her freedom, her body, her life for 1 or 2 years, was astronomical. But Thomas was dying. Every day the cancer ate more of him away. Every day she didn't have the money was another day closer to losing the only person who mattered. I need time to think, Claire said. You have until Friday. When the treatment center calls demanding payment, you can tell them you don't have it and watch your brother die. Or you can sign the contract and save him. The choice is yours, Miss Bennett. Nathan gestured to the door. My men will take you home. I suggest you think very carefully about your decision. Claire stood on legs that barely held her weight. She made it to the door, then stopped, looking back at the man in the wheelchair. In the firelight, he looked almost human, almost vulnerable. Then his eyes met hers, and she saw nothing but cold calculation. "Why me?" Claire asked. "You could hire an actress, someone who knows how to play this game. Why choose someone like me?" Nathan's smile was sharp enough to cut. "Because you're desperate, Miss Bennett. Desperate people don't ask questions. They don't make waves. They do exactly what they're told because they have too much to lose. You're perfect precisely because you have no other options." The truth of it hit Claire like a physical blow. She left the study, followed the silent guards back through the mansion, back into the SUV, back to her tiny apartment in a neighborhood where sirens sang lullabies and hopelessness was the air you breathed. She lay awake all night, staring at the ceiling, thinking about Thomas, about his smile when she brought him comics from the hospital gift shop, about the way he tried to be brave when the treatments made him sick, about how small he looked in the hospital bed, eaten away by a disease that didn't care that he was only 8 years old. By morning, she'd made her decision. On Friday, Claire walked back into the Calloway mansion wearing the only dress she owned, a black thing bought for her father's funeral, already too big because stress had carved the weight off her bones. The same guards met her, the same silent walk through opulent halls. But this time, Nathan wasn't alone in the study. 3 people stood around his wheelchair like satellites orbiting a dark star. An older man with silver hair and eyes like chips of ice. Nathan's grandfather, Claire realized. A woman in her 30s, beautiful in a predatory way, watching Claire with barely concealed contempt. And a lawyer, obviously, holding papers that would cage Claire as surely as prison bars. "Miss Bennett," Nathan said, "I'm pleased you decided to be reasonable. This is my grandfather, Marcus Calloway, my cousin, Victoria, and our family attorney, Mr. Chen." Claire nodded to each of them, received either cold assessment or outright hostility in return. Victoria especially looked at her like something stuck to the bottom of an expensive shoe. "Let's begin," Marcus Calloway said. His voice carried the weight of decades spent commanding violent men. "Mr. Chen, the contract." The lawyer spread papers across the desk, page after page of legal text that Claire couldn't possibly understand. She tried to read it, to find the traps and hidden clauses, but the words blurred together. What did it matter? She'd already lost the moment she walked through the door. "The terms are simple," Mr. Chen said in a voice like grinding stone. "You will marry Nathan Calloway in a private ceremony. You will reside in this house for a period of no less than 1 year. You will attend all family functions and present yourself as a devoted wife. In exchange, all of your father's debts are forgiven, and your brother receives full medical care at the Chamberlain Institute, the finest oncology center in the country." "What are my obligations?" Claire forced herself to ask. "As a wife?" Victoria laughed, sharp and cruel. "Worried about the bedroom, sweetheart? Don't be. Nathan can't—" "Victoria." Nathan's voice cracked like a whip. "Enough." Victoria's smile was poisonous, but she fell silent. Marcus watched the exchange with hooded eyes, seeing more than Claire wanted him to see. "You will have separate bedrooms," Mr. Chen continued, as if Victoria hadn't spoken. "No physical intimacy is required or expected. This is a business arrangement, nothing more." Relief and something else, something Claire didn't want to examine, flooded through her. She wouldn't have to sleep with him, wouldn't have to pretend passion for a man who looked at her like a chess piece. "If you violate the terms of this contract," Mr. Chen said, "all benefits cease immediately. Your brother will be removed from treatment. You will be prosecuted for fraud. You will lose everything. Do you understand?" "Yes," Claire whispered. "Sign here, and here, and here." Claire signed, and signed, and signed. Each signature felt like cutting off a piece of herself, but she kept going until the papers were covered in her name, her commitment, her surrender. When it was done, Marcus Calloway wheeled himself forward. Up close, Claire could see the resemblance between grandfather and grandson. The same ruthless intelligence, the same capacity for cold violence. "Welcome to the family, my dear," Marcus said. "I do hope you survive it." The wedding happened 3 days later in a judge's chambers. No white dress, no flowers, no pretense that this was anything but a transaction. Nathan's family attended like mourners at a funeral. Claire wore the same black dress. The rings were platinum and heavy, weighing down her hand like shackles. "I do," Claire said when prompted. "I do," Nathan said, his voice empty of everything except calculation. "I now pronounce you husband and wife." No kiss. Nathan didn't even look at her, just signed the marriage certificate with the same cold efficiency he'd probably used to sign a death warrant. And then Claire was married, owned, trapped. The Calloway mansion became her prison. She was given a bedroom in the East Wing, beautiful and cold, decorated in shades of cream and gold that felt like living inside a jewelry box. Her things, what few possessions she had, looked pathetic arranged on antique furniture. A nurse's uniform. Some books. A photo of Thomas smiling before the cancer came back. That first night, Claire stood at the window and looked out over the estate grounds. Somewhere beyond the walls, Thomas was being transferred to the Chamberlain Institute. The best care money could buy. He would live. That was what mattered. That was what she'd sold herself for. A knock at the door startled her. She opened it to find Nathan in his wheelchair, alone for the first time since they'd met. "May I come in?" he asked. Claire stepped aside. He wheeled past her, moving to the window, looking out at the same darkness she'd been contemplating. "I want to establish some ground rules," Nathan said. "You will attend family dinners. You will be polite, deferential, and silent unless directly addressed. You will not discuss family business with anyone outside this house. You will not attempt to leave the grounds without permission and escort." "So I'm a prisoner," Claire said. "You're my wife. There's a difference, though I understand it may not feel that way." Nathan turned to face her. "My cousin Victoria wants my position. She believes that my condition makes me unfit to lead. Marrying you helps counter that narrative. As long as you play your role convincingly, we'll both get what we want. And if I don't play along, then people you care about get hurt. It's that simple." The threat was delivered without heat, without anger, just a statement of fact. This was Nathan's world, a place where love was weakness and leverage was power. Claire had walked into it willingly, and now she was learning the rules. "I'll play along," Claire said. "But I want to see my brother. Weekly visits, non-negotiable." Nathan studied her for a long moment. "Agreed. Supervised visits, 1 hour per week." "Supervised? Did you think I'd let you wander around Chicago unsupervised? You're a Calloway now. That comes with enemies. Protection is mandatory." He wheeled toward the door, then paused. "One more thing. My family will test you. They'll push and prod, looking for weakness. Victoria especially. Don't give her anything to work with. In this house, showing vulnerability is the same as cutting your own throat." Then he was gone, leaving Claire alone in her golden cage. The next morning, Claire attended her first family breakfast. The dining room could seat 30 but held only 5. Nathan, at the head of the table, Marcus beside him, Victoria across from them, and an older woman who was introduced as Nathan's Aunt Diane, and Claire at the far end, feeling like an intruder at a funeral. Servants brought food Claire couldn't taste, coffee she couldn't swallow. Everyone ate in silence, the only sound the clink of silver on china. "So," Victoria said finally, her voice dripping false sweetness, "Claire, that's such a common name. Where did Nathan find you again?" "A hospital," Claire said, keeping her voice level. "I was a nurse." How quaint. Nathan always did have unconventional tastes. Victoria smiled, showing too many teeth. "Tell me, do you have any experience with high society, charity galas, political fundraising? Or will we need to teach you everything from scratch?" "Victoria," Nathan said quietly, "enough. I'm just trying to help, cousin. We wouldn't want her embarrassing the family at next week's gala." Claire's stomach dropped. Gala. Next week. She had no idea what Victoria was talking about, but clearly she was expected to know. "Claire will be fine," Nathan said. "Diane will help her prepare." Diane nodded, her expression neutral. "Of course. We'll start with wardrobe this afternoon." The rest of breakfast passed in tense silence. When it was over, Claire tried to escape back to her room, but Diane caught her in the hallway. "Come with me, dear," Diane said, not unkindly. "We have a lot of work to do." The next hours were a blur of tailors, stylists, and etiquette lessons that made Claire's head spin. How to walk in heels, how to hold a wine glass, how to make small talk with people who could destroy her with a word. Diane was patient but firm, drilling Claire on names and faces until they blurred together. "The Donnellys control the ports," Diane said, showing Claire another photo. "Never mention unions around them. The Morettis own construction. The Lees have gambling and prostitution, but pretend it's real estate investment." On and on, a catalog of Chicago's powerful families and their carefully maintained fictions. Claire tried to absorb it all, knowing that a single mistake next week could expose her as the fraud she was. That evening, Nathan summoned her to his study. He sat behind the massive desk, papers spread before him, looking every inch the dangerous man he was. "How was your day?" he asked, which would have been funny if it weren't so absurd, like they were a normal couple discussing normal things. "Overwhelming," Claire admitted. "I'm not sure I can do this. I don't belong in this world." "No one belongs in this world," Nathan said. "We're all just playing roles, Claire. Some of us have been doing it longer, that's all." He gestured to the chair across from his desk. Claire sat, exhausted beyond measure. "Next week's gala is important," Nathan said. "It's the annual Callaway Foundation fundraiser. Every major family in Chicago will attend. It's where alliances are formed, deals are made, and power is displayed. You'll be on my arm the entire night. Smile, be charming, and don't say anything of substance. Can you do that?" "I'll try." "Trying isn't good enough. You need to be perfect. Victoria will be watching for any sign of weakness. She wants my position, and she'll use you to get it if she can." Claire met his eyes. "Why does she hate you so much?" Nathan's expression darkened. "Because our grandfather named me his successor instead of her. Because I'm his blood grandson, and she's only a cousin. Because in our world, women have to fight twice as hard for half the respect." He paused. "And because she knows I'm not as weak as I appear." The way he said it made Claire's nurse instincts prickle. She'd noticed things about Nathan over the past few days, small inconsistencies that didn't match his supposed condition. The muscle tone in his legs, the way his hands moved, strong and precise. The complete absence of muscle atrophy or pressure sores that should be present in someone wheelchair-bound for 2 years. "Your paralysis," Claire said carefully. "The accident. What really happened?" Nathan's eyes locked onto hers, cold and warning. "That's not your concern. I'm a nurse. I know what paralysis looks like, and you—" "Enough!" Nathan's voice cracked like a whip. "You're here to play a role, not ask questions. Remember that." The threat was clear. Claire nodded and left, but her mind was racing. Nathan was hiding something big enough to build an entire deception around. And Claire was now part of that deception, whether she wanted to be or not. That night, she lay in her expensive bed and thought about the man she'd married. The cold, controlled Nathan who threatened her in one breath and protected her in the next. The paralyzed heir who moved with too much strength, too much precision. Whatever Nathan Callaway was hiding, Claire had a feeling it was dangerous enough to destroy them both. The Chamberlain Institute rose from Chicago's Gold Coast like a monument to wealth and privilege, all glass and steel and the kind of modern architecture that screamed money. Claire pressed her forehead against the SUV window as they pulled through the gates, her breath fogging the glass. Somewhere inside those pristine walls, Thomas was receiving treatment that would save his life. The thought should have brought relief. Instead, it only reminded her of what she'd traded for his survival. 10 minutes, the guard driving said without looking at her. Marcus, she'd learned his name was, though this one was different from Nathan's grandfather. Just another silent wall of muscle in an expensive suit, assigned to shadow her every move outside the mansion. "I was promised an hour," Claire said. "Mr. Callaway said 10 minutes today. Take it or leave it." Claire bit back the anger rising in her throat. Of course Nathan would change the terms. That was what men like Kim did, promised one thing, delivered another, and dared you to complain about it. She got out of the SUV without another word, Marcus following 2 steps behind like a well-dressed shadow. The Institute's lobby was all marble and money, nurses in crisp white uniforms moving with the quiet efficiency of people paid well to be invisible. A woman at the front desk smiled with practiced warmth that didn't reach her eyes. "Mrs. Callaway?" she said, the name still foreign to Claire's ears. "Thomas is in the garden. He's been asking about you all morning. The garden was a rooftop space, impossible greenery growing in the middle of the city, sheltered by glass walls that kept out the October cold. And there, sitting in a wheelchair by a fountain, was Thomas. He'd lost more hair since she'd seen him last week. The chemo was hitting him hard this round, leaving him pale and thin, bones pressing against skin that looked tissue paper fragile. But when he saw her, his whole face lit up with a smile that broke her heart and put it back together simultaneously. "Claire!" He tried to stand, wobbled, sat back down hard. "They said you might not come today." "I'll always come," Claire said, kneeling beside his wheelchair so she could look him in the eyes. "How are you feeling?" "Tired, but doctor, Chen says the new treatment is working. My numbers are getting better." Thomas grabbed her hand with fingers that felt like bird bones. "Is it true? Are you really married now?" Claire had told him over the phone, kept it simple, lied about love and fairy tales because what else could she do? Tell an 8-year-old that she'd sold herself to save his life? "It's true," Claire said. "His name is Nathan. He wants to meet you soon. Is he nice?" The question was so innocent, so impossibly complicated. Nice. Nathan Calloway was about as nice as a winter storm, beautiful, dangerous, and utterly indifferent to the damage he caused. "He's good to me," Claire said, which wasn't exactly a lie. Nathan hadn't hurt her, hadn't touched her at all, actually, beyond the brief contact required for public appearances. He'd given her brother life-saving treatment, beautiful clothes, a roof over her head. That he'd also given her a cage didn't change the other facts. They talked about Thomas's treatment, his doctors, the other kids on his ward. Claire soaked up every detail, storing them away like a miser hoarding coins. These visits were all she had left of her old life, her real life, before she became Mrs. Calloway and stepped into a world where everyone wore masks. 10 minutes passed too quickly. Marcus appeared at her elbow like a specter, his presence a silent reminder that her time was up. "I have to go," Claire said, hating the words even as she spoke them. "Already?" Thomas's face fell. "But you just got here." "I know, baby, but I'll be back next week, I promise." She kissed his forehead, breathing in the antiseptic smell of him, and walked away before he could see her crying. Marcus said nothing during the drive back, which was fine. Claire didn't trust herself to speak anyway. The mansion felt colder when they returned. Claire went straight to her room, intending to hide until dinner, but found Diane waiting in the hallway with an expression that promised nothing good. "The gala is tomorrow night," Diane said without preamble. "We need to do a final fitting for your dress." Claire had forgotten about the gala. Or rather, she'd been trying to forget about it, pushing the terror of her first public appearance as Nathan's wife into a locked box in the back of her mind. "Now?" Claire asked. "Now." The dress was midnight blue, cut to skim her body in ways that made her feel exposed and elegant simultaneously. Someone had measured her while she slept, apparently, because it fit like it had been designed specifically for her skeletal frame. Diane circled her like a predator, adjusting a seam here, a hemline there, her face unreadable. "You'll wear your hair up," Diane said. "Diamond earrings, no necklace. The dress is statement enough. And for the love of everything, smile. You're supposed to be a newlywed, not a prisoner." "I'll try," Claire said. "Don't try. Do." Diane's eyes softened slightly. "I know this isn't easy for you, but tomorrow night every eye in Chicago will be on you and Nathan. They'll be looking for cracks, for proof that this marriage is the sham everyone suspects it is. Don't give them that satisfaction." "Why do you care?" Claire asked. "You barely know me." "Because Nathan is my nephew, and despite what you might think, I want him to succeed. Marcus is dying. When he goes, there will be a power vacuum, and Victoria is circling like a shark. Nathan needs to appear strong, stable, worthy of leadership. You're part of that appearance." Diane paused, choosing her next words carefully. "Nathan has his reasons for the choices he's made, reasons you might not understand yet, but he's not the villain you think he is." Before Claire could respond, Diane swept out of the room, leaving Claire alone with her reflection and a dress that cost more than she used to make in a year. That night at dinner, Nathan actually looked at her. Really looked at her, his winter sky eyes traveling over her face like he was memorizing details. "Diane says you're ready for tomorrow," he said. "Diane is optimistic," Claire replied. The The ghost of a smile touched Nathan's lips. You'll be fine. Just stay close to me and follow my lead. That's what everyone keeps saying. Stay close. Don't talk. Smile. I'm starting to feel like a trained dog. You're not a dog. You're my wife. Nathan set down his fork. And tomorrow night, you need to look like you chose to be. How am I supposed to do that? The same way I pretend to be half the man I was before the accident. You act. You lie. You become what people need to see. There it was again, that hint of something deeper beneath Nathan's controlled surface. Claire leaned forward, lowering her voice even though they were alone. What happened to you? She asked. Really happened. Not the official story. Nathan's face went cold, shuddered. I've told you not to ask questions. And I've told you I'm not blind. I'm a nurse, Nathan. I know what paralysis looks like, and whatever you are, you're not enough. Nathan's hand slammed on the table hard enough to rattle the china. You want to know what happened? Fine. I was in a car accident. My spine was damaged. The doctor said I'd never walk again. That's the truth everyone knows. And it's the truth you'll repeat if anyone asks. But it's not the whole truth, Claire pressed. Nathan wheeled himself away from the table, moving to the window. For a long moment, he just stared out at the darkness, his profile sharp enough to cut glass. The accident was meant to kill me, he said finally. Someone tampered with my car. They wanted me dead, but they only managed to cripple me. Or so everyone believes. Claire's breath caught. You're saying someone in your own family tried to murder you? I'm saying that in this world, blood means nothing and power means everything. The accident gave me an advantage. People stopped seeing me as a threat. They started underestimating me. I've used that to my advantage. By pretending to be paralyzed when you're not. Nathan turned to face her, and the look in his eyes was pure warning. I'm trusting you with information that could get both of us killed. Do you understand that? If anyone knew the truth, if Victoria or Marcus or any of the other families suspected for even a moment that I've been deceiving them, we'd both be dead before sunrise. The weight of it crashed over Claire. She'd suspected Nathan was hiding something, but this was beyond anything she'd imagined. He wasn't just concealing weakness. He was concealing strength, using his supposed disability as armor while he recovered, planned, prepared for whatever came next. How long have you been able to walk? Claire asked. 6 months. The recovery was slow, agonizing, but I worked in secret. No one knows except my personal physician, who I trust with my life. And now you. Why tell me? Because tomorrow night, you need to understand what's at stake. This isn't just about appearances or succession. This is about survival, mine and yours. Nathan moved closer, his wheelchair silent on the polished floors. Victoria wants me dead. She's wanted it since the day Marcus named me his heir. If she discovers the truth about my recovery before I'm ready to reveal it, she'll use that information to destroy everything I've built. And you, as my wife, would be collateral damage. Claire's hands were shaking. She pressed them flat against her thighs, trying to steady herself. What do you need from me? Exactly what we agreed. Play the devoted wife, be convincing, and keep your mouth shut about everything you've learned tonight. And if I don't? Nathan's smile was sharp as broken glass. Then your brother's treatment stops. You go to prison for fraud, and I find another way to solve my problem. Don't test me on this, Claire. I've killed for less. The threat hung between them like smoke. Claire believed him absolutely. This was Nathan Calloway, heir to a criminal empire, a man who'd survived assassination and turned it into an advantage. Of course he'd killed. Of course he'd do it again if necessary. I'll keep your secret, Claire said, but I want something in return. You're in no position to negotiate. Maybe not, but if I'm risking my life to play this role, I want real access to Thomas. An hour every week, like we agreed, not 10 minutes at your convenience. Nathan studied her for a long moment. Done. 1 hour, every week, supervised. Anything else? Teach me, Claire said. If I'm going to survive in your world, I need to know the rules, really know them, not just the surface stuff Diane's been drilling into me. Something like respect flickered in Nathan's eyes. All right, we'll start after the gala. If you survive tomorrow night without embarrassing both of us, I'll teach you everything you need to know about this life. He wheeled away, leaving Claire alone with the weight of everything she'd learned. Nathan wasn't paralyzed. Someone had tried to kill him. Victoria was actively plotting his death, and Claire was now caught in the middle of a war she barely understood. She went to bed that night and didn't sleep at all. The next evening arrived with the inevitability of execution. Claire stood in front of her mirror while a team of stylists transformed her into someone she didn't recognize. Hair swept up in an elegant twist, makeup that made her look older, sophisticated, dangerous. The blue dress that clung to curves she'd forgotten she had. Diamond earrings that probably cost more than her brother's entire treatment. When they were done, Claire looked like she belonged in Nathan's world. The illusion was perfect, terrifying, absolutely essential. Diane appeared in the doorway, resplendent in emerald green, and actually smiled. "You look beautiful. Nathan will be pleased." "I look like a fraud," Claire said. "We all do, darling. That's the point." Nathan was waiting at the bottom of the grand staircase, devastating in a tuxedo that probably cost more than a car. His eyes tracked Claire as she descended, and for just a moment, something unguarded crossed his face. Surprise, maybe, or appreciation. Then his mask slammed back into place, and he was once again the cold, controlled man she'd married. "You clean up well," Nathan said. "So do you." He held out his hand. Claire took it, feeling the strength in his grip. Strength that shouldn't be there, that couldn't be there according to the story everyone believed. Their fingers intertwined, warm skin against warm skin, and Claire felt the shock of it run through her entire body. "Ready?" Nathan asked. "No." "Good. Fear keeps you sharp." He pulled her closer, his breath warm against her ear. "Remember, smile, be charming, and don't let anyone see you sweat. We're madly in love, deliriously happy, and completely untouchable. Can you sell that?" Claire looked into his winter sky eyes and lied with her whole heart. Yes. The ballroom was a cathedral to excess, crystal chandeliers dripping light, marble columns rising to frescoed ceilings, flowers arranged in displays that probably cost more than Claire's yearly salary. And people, hundreds of people in tuxedos and gowns, glittering with diamonds and danger, all of them turning to stare as Nathan and Claire entered. Claire felt every eye on her, cataloging, judging, searching for weakness. She forced herself to smile, to hold her head high, to look like she belonged here instead of running screaming for the exit. Nathan's hand tightened on hers. "Breathe," he murmured. "You're doing fine." They moved through the crowd like royalty, Nathan's wheelchair parting the sea of beautiful people. Everyone wanted to speak to him, to offer congratulations on his marriage, to assess the woman who'd somehow captured the attention of the Callaway heir. Claire smiled until her face hurt, repeated pleasantries until the words lost meaning, and tried not to think about how badly she wanted to disappear. "Nathan, darling." A woman materialized in front of them, 60-something, dripping in sapphires, with a smile like a shark. "And this must be your lovely bride. I'm Margaret Donnelly. My family and the Callaways go back generations." "Mrs. Donnelly," Claire said, extending her hand the way Diane had taught her. "It's a pleasure." "How did you two meet? The wedding was so sudden. We're all dying to know the story." Before Claire could stumble through an answer, Nathan smoothly intervened. "At the hospital, actually. Claire was my nurse during physical therapy. She was patient with my frustration, kind when I needed it most. I fell in love with her competence first, then everything else." The lie was so smooth, so perfectly delivered, that Claire almost believed it herself. Margaret Donnelly certainly did, her expression softening into something almost genuine. "How romantic," Margaret said, "and how wonderful that you found someone who understands your condition. It must be such a comfort." "It is," Nathan said, his hand finding Claire's and squeezing gently. "Claire's been my salvation." They moved on, repeating similar conversations a dozen times. Each interaction was a performance, a carefully calibrated dance of truth and fiction. Claire learned quickly that everyone in this room wore masks, played roles, presented carefully curated versions of themselves. Nathan had been right. They were all actors in the same terrible play. Dinner was served in a dining room that seated 300. Claire found herself at the head table between Nathan and an older man who introduced himself as Jonathan Moretti, construction magnate, and Claire suspected something much darker underneath. "Your husband's quite the catch," Moretti said, his eyes traveling over Claire in a way that made her skin crawl. "Though I have to wonder what a girl like you brings to a match like this." The insult was wrapped in silk, but it was still an insult. Claire felt Nathan stiffen beside her, but she responded before he could intervene. Loyalty, Claire said sweetly, and discretion. Two qualities I imagine are valuable in any partnership. Moretti's eyebrows rose. Clever girl. Nathan chose well. The evening ground on. Courses appeared and disappeared. Food Claire couldn't taste, wine she barely touched. Around them, Chicago's elite ate and drank and made deals that would reshape the city. Claire caught fragments of conversation, port contracts, union negotiations, discussions of territory and tribute disguised as business talk. This was Nathan's world, and it was more dangerous than she'd imagined. Halfway through dessert, Victoria appeared. She looked stunning in red that matched her lips. Her dark hair swept back to showcase a diamond collar that probably cost 6 figures. But it was her eyes that held Claire's attention, cold, calculating, filled with barely concealed hatred. "Cousin," Victoria said, leaning down to kiss Nathan's cheek. "And Claire, how lovely you look tonight. That dress must have cost a fortune. I hope Nathan's being generous with you." "Very generous," Claire said evenly. Victoria's smile sharpened. "I'm sure. Though I have to wonder how long generosity lasts in a marriage like yours, arranged so quickly, based on such practical concerns." Nathan's hand found Claire's under the table, squeezing hard enough to hurt. A warning. Don't engage, don't give her ammunition. "Our marriage is based on love," Claire said. "Everything else is just details." "Love," Victoria laughed, the sound like breaking glass. "How quaint. Tell me, Claire, do you love Nathan? Really love him? Or do you just love what he can provide?" The ballroom had gone quiet. People were listening now, sensing blood in the water. This was a test, Claire realized. Victoria was pushing, probing, looking for the crack that would expose their marriage as the fraud it was. Claire stood, her chair scraping back. She looked down at Victoria with every ounce of courage she possessed. "I love my husband," Claire said clearly, "and I don't owe you or anyone else an explanation for that." For just a moment, Victoria's mask slipped, and Claire saw pure rage underneath. Then it was gone, replaced by that predatory smile. "Of course you do, darling. My mistake." Victoria straightened, smoothing her dress. "Enjoy the rest of your evening." She walked away, but Claire could feel her watching, waiting, planning. Nathan pulled Claire back down into her seat, his expression unreadable. "Well done," he murmured. "But you just made an enemy. I thought I already had one. Now she knows you have teeth. That makes you more dangerous." Nathan's thumb traced circles on Claire's palm, an absent gesture that sent shivers up her arm. "Stay alert. Victoria doesn't forgive or forget." The gala continued, but the mood had shifted. Claire felt eyes on her everywhere she went, assessing, calculating, wondering if she was strong enough to survive in this world. She stayed at Nathan's side, playing her role, smiling until her face ached. Finally, mercifully, the evening ended. They made their goodbyes, accepted congratulations, and escaped to their waiting car. The moment the door closed, Claire slumped against the seat, exhausted beyond measure. "You did well tonight," Nathan said. "Better than I expected." "I nearly threw up 3 times." "I know, but you didn't. That's what matters." He turned to face her, his expression softer than she'd ever seen it. "You stood up to Victoria. That took courage. Or stupidity. Sometimes they're the same thing." Nathan reached out, tucking a loose strand of hair behind Claire's ear. The gesture was so unexpected, so gentle, that Claire forgot to breathe. "Thank you for tonight, for playing your part convincingly." "It's what you paid for," Claire said, but the words came out softer than she intended. "Yes, it is." They rode the rest of the way in silence, but something had shifted between them. Some barrier had cracked, letting in light. Claire didn't know what it meant, but she felt it like a physical thing, warm and terrifying and impossible to ignore. Back at the mansion, Nathan surprised her again. "I promised to teach you about this world," he said. "We'll start tomorrow. My study, 9 a.m. Don't be late." "I thought that was contingent on me not embarrassing you tonight." "You didn't embarrass me. You exceeded expectations." Nathan's smile was small, but genuine. "Sleep well, Claire. You've earned it." He wheeled away toward his wing of the house, leaving Claire alone in the hallway. She went to her room, stripped off the expensive dress, and collapsed onto her bed in her underwear in exhaustion. She'd survived her first test. But as she lay there, staring at the ceiling, Claire knew this was just the beginning. Victoria was planning something. Nathan was hiding secrets that could get them both killed, and Claire was caught in the middle, pretending to be someone she wasn't, while slowly forgetting who she used to be. Somewhere in the darkness, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "You looked beautiful tonight. Enjoy it while it lasts." Claire's blood turned to ice. She showed the text to Nathan the next morning, watching his face darken as he read it. "Victoria," he said flatly. "She's escalating. This is a warning shot." "Warning me about what?" Nathan looked at Claire with something like regret. "That she's coming for me. And when she does, you'll be caught in the crossfire." Claire stared at Nathan across the breakfast table the next morning, the threatening text still burning in her memory like acid. He'd dismissed it too easily, she thought, called it a warning shot like it was nothing more than Victoria making noise. But Claire had seen the flash of something darker in his eyes when he read those words. Concern, maybe, or calculation. Either way, it meant the threat was real. "You're not eating," Nathan observed, his own plate untouched. "Neither are you." "I'm thinking." "About Victoria?" "About how to keep you alive." Nathan set down his coffee cup with deliberate precision. "The text message changes things. Victoria's making her intentions clear. She wants you to know you're a target." Claire's stomach twisted. "Why me? I'm nobody. Just some nurse you married for convenience." "You're my wife. That makes you leverage." Nathan's jaw tightened. "In our world, the easiest way to destroy a man is to take away what he values. Victoria thinks hurting you will hurt me. Will it?" The question hung between them, heavy with implications neither of them wanted to examine. Nathan's eyes met hers, and for just a moment, his mask slipped. She saw something raw underneath, something that looked almost like fear. "Yes," he said quietly. "It would." Before Claire could respond, the study door opened and Marcus Calloway wheeled himself in, his silver hair gleaming in the morning light. He looked older than he had at the gala, his skin paper-thin and gray. Dying, Claire remembered. Nathan had said his grandfather was dying, and looking at Marcus now, she believed it. "I hope I'm not interrupting," Marcus said, though his tone made it clear he didn't care if he was. "Grandfather." Nathan's voice went carefully neutral. "What brings you here so early?" "Reports from last night. Everyone's talking about your little bride." Marcus's cold eyes settled on Claire, assessing her like livestock. "You made quite an impression, my dear. Standing up to Victoria like that? Foolish, but brave." "Thank you, I think," Claire said. "It wasn't a compliment. Bravery without strategy is just suicide with better publicity." Marcus wheeled closer, and Claire caught the smell of expensive cologne and something underneath, sickness, decay, the scent of a body giving up. "Nathan, I need to speak with you, privately." "Anything you need to say, you can say in front of Claire." "Can I?" Marcus's eyebrows rose. How trusting. How dangerous. He paused, then shrugged. "Very well. We've received intelligence that Victoria is meeting with the Donnelly family, secretly, without authorization." Nathan went very still. "When?" "Tonight. At their estate outside the city. My sources say she's proposing an alliance. She wants their support when I die and succession is decided." Claire watched Nathan's hands curl into fists on the arms of his wheelchair. The Donnellys, she remembered from Diane's lessons, controlled the ports. Major players in Chicago's underworld. If Victoria secured their backing, she'd have the muscle to challenge Nathan's claim to leadership. "What do you want me to do?" Nathan asked. "Nothing yet. Let her make her play. We'll counter when the time is right." Marcus turned his wheelchair toward the door, then paused. "Oh, and Nathan, increase security around your wife. Victoria's text last night wasn't just posturing. She's testing your defenses, looking for weak points. Don't give her any." He left, and the silence he left behind felt suffocating. Claire realized she was holding her breath and forced herself to exhale. "This is really happening," she said. "Victoria's actually going to try to kill you." "Yes." "And me." "Probably." Nathan's expression was carved from stone. which is why we're going to spend the next few weeks preparing. I promise to teach you about this world. Consider this your first real lesson. In our family, trust is a luxury, and paranoia is survival. He wheeled to his desk, pulled out a drawer, and removed something that made Claire's heart stop. A gun, small, black, lethal. I don't want that, Claire said, backing away. I don't care what you want. I care about keeping you alive. Nathan held the weapon out to her. Take it. Learn to use it. Because if Victoria comes for you, pretty words and good intentions won't save you. Only this will. Claire's hands shook as she took the gun. It was heavier than she expected, cold against her palm. She'd never held a weapon before, never imagined she'd need to. But looking at Nathan's face, at the absolute certainty there that danger was coming, she knew he was right. I'll teach you to shoot, Nathan said. We have a range in the basement. We'll start today. The basement range was clinical and cold, soundproofed walls absorbing the crack of gunfire. Nathan had Claire practice for 2 hours, correcting her stance, her grip, her breathing. By the end, her ears rang despite the protection and her hands ached, but she could hit the target more often than not. Better, Nathan said as they climbed back upstairs. Keep practicing. I want you comfortable with that weapon. I'm never going to be comfortable with it. Good. Fear keeps you careful. Just make sure when the time comes you can pull the trigger. That afternoon, Claire had her weekly visit with Thomas. An hour this time, like Nathan had promised. Her brother looked better, color in his cheeks, spark in his eyes. The treatment was working. Whatever Claire had sacrificed, whatever danger she'd walked into, at least Thomas was getting better. Tell me about your house, Thomas said, curled up beside her on the garden bench. Is it really as big as a castle? Bigger, Claire said, tucking him against her side, with more rooms than I can count. And Nathan? Is he nice to you? Claire thought about Nathan teaching her to shoot, about the way he'd held her hand at the gala, about the flash of something almost gentle in his eyes when he looked at her. Nice wasn't the right word. Complicated was closer. He's protective, Claire said finally. He wants to keep me safe. Then I like him. Thomas yawned, his small body warm against hers. Anyone who keeps my sister safe is okay with me. Marcus the guard appeared at the edge of the garden, signaling that her time was up. Claire kissed Thomas's forehead and promised to come back next week, then let herself be escorted back to the SUV. She watched the institute disappear in the rearview mirror and felt the familiar ache of separation. Thomas was her anchor, her reason for everything. As long as he was safe, she could survive anything. Back at the mansion, Diane intercepted her in the hallway with news that made Claire's blood run cold. There's been an incident, Diane said, her voice tight. Someone tried to break into the East Wing last night. Security stopped them, but they got close, too close. Victoria? Claire asked. We don't know. But Nathan wants you moved. You'll be staying in the room next to his from now on. Closer protection. The new room was smaller, but more secure. Reinforced door, panic button by the bed, windows that didn't open. A gilded cage within a cage. Claire unpacked her few belongings, trying not to think about how close danger had come. Someone had been in the mansion, moving through halls she walked every day, looking for her or Nathan or both. That night, she couldn't sleep. Every sound made her jump, the house settling, wind against windows, her own heartbeat too loud in her ears. Finally, at 2 a.m, she gave up and went looking for water. The hallway was dark, lit only by emergency lights that cast everything in sickly green. Claire moved quietly, not wanting to wake anyone, and was almost to the kitchen when she heard it. Footsteps. Coming from Nathan's study. She should have gone back to her room, should have called security. Instead, she crept closer, some instinct she didn't understand pulling her forward. The study door was open a crack, light spilling out, and inside she saw something that made her breath catch. Nathan, standing, not in his wheelchair but on his own 2 legs, pacing back and forth like a caged wolf. He moved with perfect control, no hesitation, no weakness. The paralysis was completely, undeniably fake. Claire must have made a sound because Nathan spun toward the door, his hand moving to his hip where she now realized he kept a gun. Their eyes met through the crack, and for a heartbeat, she saw real fear on his face, then resignation. Come in, he said quietly, and close the door behind you. Claire obeyed, her legs trembling. Inside the study, Nathan leaned against his desk, still standing, still solid and whole, and nothing like the man everyone believed him to be. "I know," Claire said. "You told me you could walk, but seeing it is different than knowing." Nathan crossed to her in 3 long strides, and Claire felt the full impact of his presence without the wheelchair between them. He was tall, over 6 feet, with the kind of controlled strength that came from hours of hidden training. "You understand what this means? What happens if anyone else sees what you just saw? We die. We die." Nathan's hand settled on her shoulders, warm and steady. "So I need to know, Claire. Can I trust you? Really trust you? Or do I need to find another way to ensure your silence?" The threat was there, unspoken, but real. Claire met his eyes and saw a man balancing on a knife's edge, desperate enough to do terrible things to protect his secret. "You can trust me," Claire said. "I won't tell anyone, I swear." "Why? What's my secret worth to you?" "Thomas is worth it, and I—" She stopped, not sure what she was about to say. "I don't want you to die, Nathan. Whatever else this is, whatever game we're playing, I don't want you dead." Something in his expression softened. His hands moved from her shoulders to her face, cupping it gently, and Claire felt heat flood through her at the contact. "I don't want you dead either," Nathan said quietly, "which is why we need to be smarter, more careful. Victoria's making her move, and when she does, we need to be ready." "What's she planning?" "I don't know yet, but we're going to find out." Nathan stepped back, and Claire immediately felt the loss of his warmth. "Go back to bed. Tomorrow we start preparing in earnest. No more half measures." Claire returned to her room but didn't sleep. She lay in the dark thinking about Nathan standing in his study, about the weight of secrets they both carried, about the way her heart had raced when he touched her face. This was dangerous in ways that had nothing to do with Victoria or succession wars. This was the kind of danger that came from forgetting that their marriage was a transaction, nothing more. The next morning brought new routines. Nathan started training Claire in more than just shooting. He taught her to recognize threats, to watch for suspicious behavior, to trust her instincts. They spent hours in his study, going over files on every major player in Chicago's underworld. Claire learned to read between the lines, to see the power structures and fault lines that kept the city's dark economy running. "The Donnellys are key," Nathan explained, spreading photos across his desk. "If Victoria secures their alliance, she'll have enough support to challenge my succession. We need to counter that." "How?" "By giving the Donnellys something they want more than whatever Victoria is offering." Nathan pulled out another file. "They've been trying to expand into legitimate shipping for years. International contracts. I can make that happen if they stay loyal to me. And if they don't, then we remind them why betraying a Calloway is a death sentence." Claire spent the afternoon learning the details of the Donnelly family operation, their key players, their weaknesses, their ambitions. By dinner, her head ached with information, but she understood the landscape better. This was chess played with human lives, and every move mattered. That evening, Victoria appeared at dinner for the first time since the gala. She looked triumphant, her smile sharp, as she took her seat across from Nathan. "Cousin," she said sweetly, "and dear Claire, how lovely to see you both looking so well-rested." "Victoria," Nathan's voice was ice, "to what do we owe the pleasure?" "Can't a family member join dinner without an ulterior motive?" "Not in this family," Victoria laughed, the sound like breaking crystal. "Fair enough. Actually, I have wonderful news. The Donnelly family has agreed to support my bid for succession when Marcus passes. They recognize that the family needs fresh leadership, someone who can actually stand up and lead." The barb was deliberate, cruel. Claire felt Nathan tense beside her, saw his hands curl into fists under the table. But his face remained perfectly calm. "The Donnellys are free to support whomever they choose," Nathan said, "though I question their judgment." "Do you?" Victoria leaned forward. "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're finished, Nathan. A paralyzed leader is no leader at all. The family will never follow you, no matter how pretty your new wife is." Claire's hand found Nathan's under the table, squeezing hard. A reminder. Don't react. Don't give her what she wants. "We'll see," Nathan said quietly. Succession isn't decided by the Donnellys. It's decided by Marcus. And last I checked, he was still breathing. Barely. Victoria stood, smoothing her dress. Enjoy your dinners while you can, cousin. When Marcus dies, everything changes, and I promise you won't like the world that comes after. She swept out, leaving tension thick enough to cut. Nathan's hand was trembling in Claire's, his control fracturing at the edges. She's right, Nathan said once Victoria was gone. If the Donnellys are backing her, I'm in real trouble. Marcus won't live much longer, and when he dies, we fight, Claire interrupted. You said you were going to teach me to survive in this world, so teach me how we fight back. Nathan looked at her for a long moment, and Claire saw something shift in his eyes. Respect, maybe. Or recognition that she wasn't the terrified girl he'd married anymore. All right, Nathan said. Tomorrow we pay the Donnellys a visit. It's time to make them a better offer. The Donnelly estate was north of the city, all old money and older power. Nathan insisted on going himself despite the risk, and Claire went with him because leaving her alone felt more dangerous. They drove in an armored SUV with 3 guards, approaching the mansion as the sun set and turned everything to blood and gold. Margaret Donnelly received them in a parlor that smelled of roses and money. She was alone except for 2 men who were clearly security, watching Nathan and Claire with predator eyes. Nathan Calloway, Margaret said, her smile not reaching her eyes. And your charming bride. What brings you to my home? Business, Nathan said simply. I understand Victoria made you an offer. She did. A generous one. I can be more generous. Nathan pulled out a folder, slid it across the coffee table between them. International shipping contracts, legitimate ones. Access to ports in Singapore, Rotterdam, Hong Kong. Everything you need to expand your operations beyond Chicago. Margaret opened the folder, her expression carefully neutral as she scanned the documents. But Claire saw interest flicker in her eyes, quick and sharp. Victoria offered me protection, Margaret said. Guaranteed territory. No interference from other families. I'm offering you an empire. Nathan leaned forward. Victoria wants to maintain the status quo. I want to expand our reach, modernize our operations, move into legitimate business. Partner with me. And the Donnelly name won't just control Chicago's ports. It'll control international trade routes. And what do you want in return? Your loyalty, your public support for my succession, and your word that if Victoria makes a move against me or my wife, you'll stand with us. Margaret set down the folder, her gaze moving between Nathan and Claire. You're asking me to bet against Victoria. She's ruthless, Nathan, ambitious, and she's not limited by a wheelchair. The insult landed like a slap. Claire felt Nathan flinch beside her, saw the muscle in his jaw jump. But he kept his voice level, his expression calm. My condition doesn't affect my mind, Nathan said, or my ability to lead. I've been preparing for succession my entire life. Victoria's been preparing to steal it. There's a difference. Is there? Margaret stood, crossing to the window. The families respect strength, Nathan. Physical strength. They need to believe their leader can protect them, can go to war if necessary. Can you do that from a wheelchair? This was it, Claire realized, the moment that would decide everything. Nathan could reveal the truth about his recovery, prove he was stronger than Victoria believed, but doing so would expose him before he was ready, would give his enemies time to adapt, to counter. Nathan stayed silent, and Claire watched him weigh his options. Then she made a decision. Mrs. Donnelly, Claire said, drawing the older woman's attention. May I ask you something? Of course, dear. Do you respect Marcus Calloway? Margaret's eyes narrowed. Of course. He's built this city's infrastructure from nothing. And he's been in a wheelchair for the last 5 years since his stroke. Has that made him less effective? Less feared? The parallel was clear, deliberate. Margaret's expression shifted, reassessing. Marcus Calloway is a legend, Margaret said slowly. But Nathan is not his grandfather. Not yet, Claire agreed, but he will be. He has Marcus's strategic mind, his patience, his ability to see 10 moves ahead. Victoria has ambition and ruthlessness. In a street fight, maybe that's enough. But running an organization like this? That takes more than just physical strength. It takes intelligence, vision, the ability to build something that lasts. She could feel Nathan staring at her, but she kept her eyes on Margaret. And if Victoria comes after us, Claire continued, she'll learn what every enemy of the Calloways has learned, that underestimating them is the last mistake you ever make. The room went quiet. Margaret returned to her seat, her eyes sharp as she studied both of them. You're more than just a pretty face, aren't you? Margaret said to Claire. Nathan chose well. She picked up the folder again, reviewing the contracts with new interest. All right, I'll consider your offer, but I need a show of good faith. Something that proves you're serious about modernizing operations. Name it, Nathan said. There's a problem at the docks. Union organizers making noise, threatening strikes. They're cutting into profits. Victoria promised to handle it with force. Intimidation. The old way. Margaret set down the folder. Handle it better. Solve the problem without violence, and you'll have my support. Nathan nodded slowly. Consider it done. They left the Donnelly estate as night fell, the guards tense and alert during the drive back. Nathan was quiet, his expression unreadable, and Claire wondered if she'd overstepped, if speaking for him had been a mistake. Thank you, Nathan said finally, his voice soft, for what you said in there, about Marcus, about me. I meant it. I know, that's what makes it dangerous. He turned to face her, and in the dim light of the SUV, his eyes were impossibly dark. You're starting to believe in this, Claire. In us. In the possibility that we're more than just a business arrangement. Aren't we? Nathan didn't answer, which was answer enough. They rode the rest of the way in silence, but when they reached the mansion and Nathan's hand brushed hers as they separated for the night, Claire felt electricity arc between them. Something was changing, shifting, becoming real in ways neither of them had planned for. The next morning, Nathan called Claire to his study before breakfast. We have a problem, he said without preamble. The union organizers at the docks, I know who's behind them. Who? Victoria. She created the problem she promised the Donnellys she'd solve. It's a setup. If I use force, I look like the old guard Margaret's trying to escape. If I do nothing, I look weak and lose the Donnellys' support. Claire's mind raced. So we find a third option. What do the union organizers actually want? Better wages, safety equipment, health care. Then give it to them. Nathan blinked. What? Give them what they want. Publicly announce improved conditions at all Callaway-controlled facilities. Position it as modernization, bringing the family business into the 21st century. The organizers get what they need, the Donnellys see you as a progressive leader, and Victoria's plan backfires completely. A slow smile spread across Nathan's face. You're brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I'm practical, there's a difference. Is there? Nathan wheeled closer, and Claire's breath caught at the intensity in his eyes. You're changing things, Claire, the way I think, the way I approach problems. A month ago, I would have sent men to break the strike. Now I'm considering actually helping people. You're making me soft. Or smarter, Claire said. Fear and force only work for so long. Eventually, people fight back. But give them something to believe in, something worth protecting, and they'll fight for you instead of against you. Nathan reached out, his fingers trailing along her jaw in a gesture that felt far too intimate for a business arrangement. Where have you been all my life, Claire Bennett? Struggling to survive, Claire said honestly. Just like everyone else you've been terrorizing. The truth of it hung between them, sharp and unavoidable. Nathan pulled back, his expression closing off. I'm not a good man, he said. Don't forget that. I've hurt people, killed people, destroyed lives to protect my family's interests. Whatever you're starting to feel, I know what you are, Claire interrupted. I'm not naive, Nathan, but I also know you're more than just the worst things you've done. People are complicated, even people like you. Nathan stared at her for a long moment, something like pain flickering across his face. Then he shook his head and wheeled toward his desk. We implement your plan today, he said, his voice back to business. I'll have the lawyers draw up new contracts for all dock workers. Better pay, benefits, safety equipment. We'll announce it this afternoon. The announcement sent shockwaves through Chicago's underworld. Nathan Callaway, feared heir to a criminal empire, was offering union organizers everything they wanted. No violence, no intimidation, just cooperation. Victoria appeared at dinner that night, her face a mask of barely controlled rage. What the hell are you doing? She demanded, slamming her hands on the table hard enough to rattle the china. You're making us look weak, soft, like we can be pushed around by anyone with a grievance. I'm making us look smart, Nathan replied calmly. The world is changing, Victoria. The families that adapt will survive. The ones that don't will be crushed by law enforcement, public pressure, and their own obsolescence. This is because of her, isn't it? Victoria's venomous gaze fixed on Claire. Your little nurse bride is filling your head with weakness, making you forget who you are. She's making me remember who I want to be, Nathan said quietly. The admission hung in the air, shocking in its honesty. Victoria's face twisted with something like grief before hardening back into hate. You'll regret this, Victoria said. Both of you. When Marcus dies and I take control, you'll beg for mercy. And I won't give you any. She stormed out, leaving Claire and Nathan alone. He reached across the table, taking Claire's hand in his. She meant that, Claire said. Every word. I know, which means we're running out of time. Nathan's thumb traced patterns on her palm, the gesture unconscious, intimate. Marcus is fading fast. Maybe weeks. When he dies, Victoria will make her move. We need to be ready. How do we get ready for war? Nathan's smile was sharp, dangerous, and utterly captivating. We make sure we're the ones who strike first. The call came 3 days later, at 2 a.m. Claire jerked awake to the sound of her phone buzzing against the nightstand, her heart already racing before she saw Nathan's name on the screen. It's Marcus, Nathan said without preamble when she answered. He's had a stroke. The doctors say he has hours, maybe less. Get dressed. We need to go to the hospital now. Claire threw on clothes with shaking hands, her mind spinning. Hours. That meant the succession war was about to begin in earnest. With Victoria ready to pounce the moment Marcus took his last breath. She met Nathan in the hallway. He was in his wheelchair, dressed in dark clothes, his face carved from stone. Is this it? Claire asked as they moved toward the garage. The moment everything changes? Yes. Nathan's voice was tight. Victoria will be there. The whole family will be there. Everyone positioning themselves for what comes next. The hospital was the same one where Claire used to work, and the familiarity of it made her chest ache. She'd walked these halls as a different person, worried about different things. Now she moved through them as Mrs. Calloway, wife to a man playing the most dangerous game in Chicago, and the weight of that identity felt crushing. Marcus's private room was on the top floor, guarded by men in suits who nodded Nathan through without question. Inside, the family had already gathered. Victoria stood by the window, her face a careful mask of grief that didn't quite reach her eyes. Diane sat in a chair, genuinely crying. Other relatives Claire barely recognized filled the space, all watching Marcus's still form in the hospital bed with expressions ranging from sorrow to calculation. Marcus Calloway looked small in the bed, diminished by tubes and monitors. His breathing was labored, his skin gray. The man who'd built an empire through violence and cunning was being reduced to failing organs and fading vital signs. Nathan, Marcus's voice was barely a whisper. Come here. Nathan wheeled to his grandfather's bedside, and Claire followed, staying close. Marcus's eyes opened, those cold, calculating eyes that had assessed her at their first meeting. Now they looked clouded, distant, focused on something beyond this room. I don't have long, Marcus said, so listen carefully. Everything I built, everything this family is, it's yours now, Nathan. The business, the territory, the legacy, all of it. Grandfather, you need to rest. I need to die, and we both know it. Marcus's hand found Nathan's, gripping with what little strength remained. But before I do, I need you to promise me something. This family has survived for 3 generations because we adapted. We changed with the times. Keep doing that. Don't let us become dinosaurs. I promise. And your wife. Marcus's gaze shifted to Claire. Keep her close. She's smarter than she looks, and you'll need that. Trust her, Nathan. Trust is rare in our world, but when you find it, hold on to it. Claire felt tears burning in her eyes. Marcus was a monster by any objective measure, but in this moment he was also a dying old man trying to protect the grandson he loved. I will, Nathan said, his voice rough with emotion. Marcus's eyes drifted closed. Victoria's going to fight you. She's been planning this for years. Don't underestimate her. And don't hesitate when the time comes. Mercy is for people who can afford it. Those were his last coherent words. Over the next hour, his breathing grew more labored, more irregular. The family gathered closer, a pack of wolves watching their alpha fade. And then, just as dawn broke over Chicago, Marcus Calloway took one final breath and was gone. The silence that followed felt apocalyptic. Victoria was the first to move. She straightened from the window, her expression shifting from grief to something harder, more dangerous. "I'm sorry for your loss," she said to Nathan, the words dripping false sympathy. "Marcus was a great man, but now we need to discuss succession. The family needs stable leadership, and I think we can all agree that requires someone who can—" "Save it," Nathan interrupted, his voice cold as winter. "Marcus named me his successor. You all heard him. The decision is made." "A dying man's rambling isn't a legal transfer of power," Victoria shot back. "We need a formal vote from the family council. That's tradition." "Then call the vote," Nathan said. "Let's settle this now." The family council convened that afternoon in the mansion's great room. 20 members of the extended Calloway family, all the uncles and cousins, and distant relations who had a stake in the empire's future. They sat around a massive table, watching Nathan and Victoria like spectators at a gladiator fight. Diane presided over the meeting, her face still blotchy from crying, but her voice steady. "We're here to determine succession. Marcus named Nathan as his heir, but Victoria has challenged that appointment. We'll hear arguments from both candidates, then vote." Victoria stood first, commanding the room with practiced ease. "I loved my Uncle Marcus, but his final wish, while heartfelt, isn't practical. Our family needs a leader who can physically defend our interests, who can meet with other families as an equal, who can project strength in every interaction. Nathan, for all his intelligence, is limited by his condition. I am not. I can lead us into the future without the liability of perceived weakness." She sat down to scattered nods. Claire felt Nathan tense beside her, felt the weight of Victoria's words landing like blows. Everything she said was calculated to highlight Nathan's supposed disability, to make it the defining factor in the room's decision. "Nathan?" Diane prompted. Nathan wheeled forward, and Claire's heart hammered in her chest. This was it. The moment he could reveal the truth about his recovery, stand up and prove Victoria wrong. But doing so would expose his deception to the entire family, many of whom couldn't be trusted to keep the secret. "My cousin is right about one thing," Nathan said, his voice carrying to every corner of the room. "Our family needs strong leadership, but strength comes in many forms. Victoria offers you the strength of intimidation, of violence, of maintaining the old ways that are slowly destroying us. I offer you something different, the strength of strategy, of adaptation, of building something that will last beyond any of our lifetimes." He paused, letting the words sink in. "In the past month, I've renegotiated our dock contracts to improve worker conditions, which has eliminated union threats and increased productivity by 30%. I've opened negotiations with international partners that will expand our legitimate business interests into markets Victoria hasn't even considered. I've shown the Donnelly family and others that we can evolve, that we can be more than just criminals with expensive suits." "Pretty words," Victoria interjected. "But when the Moretti family comes knocking, when territory disputes turn violent, what then? Will you negotiate them to death from your wheelchair?" "If necessary, yes." Nathan's eyes swept the room. "Because, unlike Victoria, I understand that the future of this family isn't in street wars and body counts. It's in becoming legitimate, powerful in ways that law enforcement can't touch." Marcus understood that. He spent the last 10 years of his life moving our assets into legal enterprises. "I'm going to finish what he started." "By going soft," Victoria sneered. "By giving away power to union workers and acting like we're a charity instead of a criminal organization. By being smart enough to know when violence is necessary and when it's just waste." Nathan's voice hardened. "You want to lead through fear, Victoria? Fine. But fear only works until someone becomes more frightening than you. I'd rather lead through respect, through making this family so valuable to our partners that they have no interest in destroying us." The arguments went back and forth for hours. Claire watched the family members' faces, trying to gauge which way they'd vote. Some were clearly with Victoria, the old guard who valued traditional shows of strength. Others seemed intrigued by Nathan's vision, particularly the younger cousins who'd grown up in a world where criminal empires were being dismantled by RICO prosecutions and federal task forces. Finally, Diane called for the vote. One by one, the family members announced their choice. The count was close, agonizingly close. With one vote remaining, they were tied at 9 each. The final vote belonged to an elderly uncle named Robert, who'd sat silent through the entire proceeding. "Uncle Robert?" Diane prompted. Robert looked between Nathan and Victoria, his weathered face unreadable. "I remember when Marcus first took over this family. He was young, untested, and everyone thought he was too soft to lead. But he proved them wrong by being smarter than anyone expected. I see that same intelligence in Nathan." He paused. "I vote for Nathan Calloway as successor." The room erupted. Victoria surged to her feet, her face twisted with rage. "This is a mistake. All of you will regret this." "The vote is final," Diane said firmly. "Nathan Calloway is now head of the family. Victoria, you will respect that decision." "Like hell I will." Victoria's hand moved to her purse, and Claire saw Nathan tense, saw his hand slide beneath his jacket where she knew he kept a gun. For a heartbeat, violence hung in the air between them, electric and inevitable. Then Victoria smiled, cold and poisonous. "Fine, you want to lead? Lead. But when you fail, and you will fail, don't come crying to me for help." She swept out of the room, taking several family members with her. The ones who remained looked uncertain, caught between tradition and change. Nathan addressed them directly. "I know some of you have doubts. That's fine. I'm going to prove myself worthy of Marcus's faith, but I need your cooperation. If anyone has issues with my leadership, bring them to me directly. I'd rather have honest opposition than hidden betrayal." The meeting dissolved after that, family members filtering out in small groups, whispering among themselves. Claire stayed at Nathan's side, feeling the weight of what had just happened. He'd won, but barely, and Victoria's threat still echoed in the air. "Are you all right?" Claire asked once they were alone. "No." Nathan's hands were shaking on the wheelchair arms. "I just took control of a criminal empire while half the family wants me dead. I'm very far from all right." "But you did it. You won. For now." Nathan looked up at her, and Claire saw exhaustion in every line of his face. "Victoria's going to retaliate. Soon. We need to be ready." They spent the next week preparing. Nathan increased security around the mansion, vetted every employee, and installed new surveillance systems. He met with loyal family members to shore up support, made deals to secure alliances, and worked 18-hour days that left him hollow-eyed and tense. Claire helped where she could, learning the intricacies of the family business faster than she'd thought possible. She sat in on meetings, took notes, offered opinions when asked. Slowly, she stopped being just Nathan's wife and became his partner in truth, the person he trusted to see the full picture. Their relationship shifted during those intense days. The walls between them eroded under pressure, until Claire couldn't remember where the performance ended and reality began. Nathan touched her more often, a hand on her back as they walked, fingers brushing hers during meetings, his palm cupping her face when they were alone. And Claire found herself leaning into those touches, craving the warmth and connection they provided. "We need to talk about this," Nathan said one night, finding Claire in the library where she'd gone to escape the pressure. "Talk about what?" "Us. What's happening between us." Nathan wheeled closer, his expression serious. "I hired you to play a role, Claire, to be my wife in name only. But somewhere along the way that changed, for me at least. I need to know if it changed for you too." Claire's heart hammered against her ribs. This was dangerous territory, admitting feelings in a relationship built on transaction and necessity. But looking at Nathan, at the vulnerability in his eyes, the hope mixed with fear, she couldn't lie. "Yes," she said quietly. "It changed. I don't know when exactly, but somewhere between the threats and the gun lessons and the family meetings, I stopped pretending. Claire, I know this is complicated. I know we started as a business arrangement, but I care about you, Nathan, really care, and I think you care about me too." "I do." Nathan reached for her hand, pulling her closer. "More than I should. More than is safe. You were supposed to be a shield, a way to secure my position, but you've become so much more than that." He stood then, rising from the wheelchair with the fluid grace she'd seen that night in his study. Claire's breath caught as he towered over her, solid and whole and devastating. "I'm still not supposed to know you can do that," Claire whispered. "You're the only person outside my doctor who does know." Nathan's hands framed her face, tilting it up toward his. "You're the only person I trust with the truth, all of it." When he kissed her, it felt like falling and flying simultaneously. Claire melted into him, her hands fisting in his shirt, her body pressed against his. The kiss was hungry, desperate, full of weeks of denied attraction and growing feelings neither of them had wanted to acknowledge. "This changes everything," Claire gasped when they finally broke apart. "I know." Nathan rested his forehead against hers. "We can't tell anyone. Can't let them see this is real. Because if Victoria finds out I actually care about you, if she knows hurting you would destroy me, she'll use that against us. So we hide it. Keep pretending it's just an arrangement. Can you do that? Lie about this?" Claire thought about Thomas, about the life Nathan had given her brother, about the danger they were both in because of Victoria's ambition. "I can do whatever I have to do to keep us both alive." Nathan kissed her again, softer this time, and Claire felt something shift in her chest. She was in love with him, completely, irrevocably in love with a man who'd threatened her into marriage and then somehow become the person she trusted most in the world. "We should get back," Nathan said reluctantly. "People will notice if we're both missing." He returned to his wheelchair, the transformation seamless, and they made their way back to the main house. But everything felt different now. The weight of Nathan's hand on hers, the heat in his eyes when he looked at her. It was all real, all dangerous, all impossible to take back. The next morning brought news that made Nathan's face go white. One of their warehouses had burned to the ground overnight. Arson, clearly, and a message from Victoria that she wasn't done fighting. "She's escalating," Nathan said, staring at the photos of the destroyed building. "Testing my response. If I do nothing, I look weak. If I retaliate with force, I prove Victoria's point about needing violent leadership." "Then we respond differently," Claire said. "We prove the fire was arson, we press charges through official channels, and we rebuild twice as big. Show her that destroying our property just makes us stronger." Nathan looked at her with something like wonder. "You're thinking like a Calloway now. Is that good or bad?" "I'm not sure yet." But he was smiling when he said it. They implemented Claire's plan, using official channels to investigate the fire while quietly putting the word out that any further attacks would be met with serious consequences. It was a balance, showing strength without starting an all-out war. But Victoria wasn't finished. Over the next 2 weeks, she made move after move, spreading rumors that Nathan was too weak to lead, approaching family members with offers to switch allegiances, making deals with rival families that encroached on Calloway territory. Nathan countered each move with strategy instead of violence. He exposed Victoria's lies, offered better deals than she could match, and slowly turned her aggression into proof that she was the unstable one, not him. The final showdown came at the annual Calloway Foundation Gala, the same event where Claire had first appeared as Nathan's wife. This year, the stakes were infinitely higher. The ballroom was packed with Chicago's elite, both legitimate and criminal. Everyone who mattered was there, watching to see how the new Calloway leadership would handle itself. Nathan and Claire arrived together, presenting a united front, and the moment they entered, all eyes turned to them. "Ready?" Nathan murmured. "No," Claire admitted, "but I'll pretend to be." They worked the room like they'd been born to it. Nathan in his wheelchair, commanding respect through sheer force of will, Claire at his side, learning to read the subtle power plays and hidden agendas behind every polite conversation. Victoria arrived fashionably late, dressed in red like blood, her smile sharp as knives. She moved through the crowd with predatory grace, and Claire could feel her watching, waiting for an opening. The speeches started after dinner. Diane welcomed everyone, spoke about Marcus's legacy, and introduced Nathan as the new head of the Calloway family. Nathan's speech was brief but powerful, outlining his vision for the future and thanking everyone for their support. Then Victoria asked to speak. "I just wanted to say a few words about my dear cousin," Victoria began, her voice honey-sweet and venomous. "Nathan has worked so hard to prove he can lead from his wheelchair. It's admirable, really, almost as admirable as the fairy tale he's selling about his marriage." The room went silent. Claire felt Nathan tense beside her, felt the sudden weight of hundreds of eyes turning toward them. I mean, we all know the truth, don't we? Victoria continued. That Claire was a nobody nurse with a mountain of debt when Nathan found her. That this marriage was a transaction, nothing more. A pretty prop to make Nathan look stable and capable. But how long can a marriage built on lies really last? Victoria, Diane started, but Victoria cut her off. No, I think people deserve to know what kind of leader Nathan really is. The kind who buys wives, who lies about his condition, who pretends to be something he's not. Claire's blood ran cold. Did Victoria know about Nathan's recovery? Was she about to expose everything? But Nathan was already moving. He pressed a button on his wheelchair, and suddenly the screens around the ballroom lit up with financial documents, emails, recorded phone calls, all evidence of Victoria's schemes over the past month. The arson, the attempted bribery of family members, secret deals with rival organizations that would have destroyed Callaway interests. You want to talk about lies, cousin? Nathan's voice cut through the shocked silence. Let's talk about yours, how you've been systematically trying to undermine my leadership, how you hired people to burn our warehouse, how you've been selling family secrets to our enemies. Victoria's face went from red to white. That's fabricated. Lies. It's all documented. Every phone call, every meeting, every illegal move you've made. Nathan gestured to the screens. I've been watching you, Victoria, gathering evidence, waiting for you to overplay your hand. You can't prove any of this. I already have, and I've shared it with every major family in Chicago. They all know now what you really are, a traitor who puts her own ambition above family loyalty. The crowd's murmur rose to a roar. Victoria looked around wildly, seeing her support crumbling in real time. The families wouldn't tolerate a traitor, wouldn't work with someone who'd proven she'd sell anyone out for power. This isn't over, Victoria hissed. You think you've won? You've just made an enemy you can't survive. She stormed toward the exit, but Nathan's guards blocked her path. And then Victoria did something that turned Claire's blood to ice. She pulled a gun. The ballroom erupted into chaos. People screamed, dove for cover. Victoria's hand was shaking, the weapon aimed directly at Nathan, and Claire saw murder in her eyes. You took everything from me, Victoria said, her voice breaking. Everything I worked for, everything I deserved. Well, if I can't have it, neither can you. Time seemed to slow. Claire watched Victoria's finger tighten on the trigger, watched Nathan sitting in his wheelchair, too far away to dodge, too committed to his deception to reveal he could move. Claire didn't think. She threw herself in front of Nathan just as the gun went off. The impact felt like being hit by a truck, white-hot pain blooming in her shoulder, spinning her around. She heard Nathan scream her name, heard more gunshots as security returned fire, heard Victoria's shriek cut short. Then she was falling, and Nathan caught her, not in the wheelchair, but on his feet, standing, his arms around her as they both went down. Claire, stay with me, Nathan was saying, his voice raw with panic. Someone call an ambulance. Claire, please. You're standing, Claire mumbled, her vision going gray at the edges. Everyone can see you standing. I don't care. I don't care about any of it. Nathan's face was above hers, and he was crying. Just stay alive. Please, Claire, stay alive. The ballroom spun. Claire saw Victoria's body on the floor, security surrounding it. Saw the crowd staring at Nathan, at the miracle of him standing after 2 years in a wheelchair. Saw the shock and confusion and realization spreading through the room. Nathan, Claire whispered, your secret doesn't matter. Nothing matters except you. He pressed his hand against her shoulder, trying to stop the bleeding. You saved my life. You jumped in front of a bullet for me. Of course I did. Claire's eyes were closing despite her efforts to keep them open. I love you, you idiot. I love you too, so much. Just hold on. The world went dark, but the last thing Claire felt was Nathan's arms around her, solid and strong and refusing to let go. Claire woke to the smell of antiseptic and the steady beep of monitors. For a disoriented moment, she thought she was back at St. Catherine's, back in her old life before Nathan Callaway had turned everything upside down. Then pain bloomed in her shoulder, sharp and insistent, and memory came flooding back. The gala, Victoria's gun, Nathan standing, the bullet meant for him tearing through her instead. You're awake. Nathan's voice, rough from exhaustion, pulled her eyes open. He sat beside her hospital bed, still in his tuxedo from the gala, the jacket discarded and his shirt stained with her blood. His hand gripped hers like he was afraid she'd disappear if he let go. How long? Claire's throat felt like sandpaper. 36 hours. You've been in and out, but the doctor said you'd be fine. The bullet went through clean, missed everything vital. Nathan's free hand came up to her face, trembling as it traced her cheekbone. You could have died, Claire. You threw yourself in front of a bullet for me. You would have done the same. That's different. I'm used to this life, this violence. You shouldn't have to... His voice cracked. You shouldn't have to take bullets meant for me. Claire's gaze moved past him, taking in the private hospital room that was probably costing a fortune. Victoria? Dead. Security shot her when she refused to drop the weapon. Nathan's expression was complicated. Grief and relief and something darker twisted together. She was my cousin. I grew up with her. And in the end, I had to watch her die because she couldn't let go of something that was never hers to begin with. I'm sorry. Don't be. She made her choices. Nathan leaned closer, his forehead nearly touching hers. The whole ballroom saw me stand, Claire. Saw me catch you when you fell. The secret's out. Everyone knows I've been lying about the paralysis. What happened after? Claire tried to sit up and immediately regretted it as pain lanced through her shoulder. Nathan's hand steadied her, adjusting the pillows with gentle care. Chaos at first. Then Diane stepped in and explained everything, the accident, the assassination attempt, my recovery, why I kept it secret. By the time the police arrived to take statements, the narrative was already set. I wasn't a fraud. I was a survivor who'd used strategy to protect himself while he healed. And the families, did they accept that? Nathan's smile was sharp. They didn't have much choice. I had evidence of Victoria's treachery displayed on every screen in the ballroom. She'd been actively working against Calloway interests, making deals with our enemies, trying to start a war that would have destroyed us all. Compared to that, my deception about walking looked like brilliant tactical planning. So you won. We won. Nathan's thumb traced circles on her palm, the gesture achingly familiar now. You were right there beside me every step of the way. Hell, you took a bullet for me. The families respect that kind of loyalty. Several of them have already reached out to reaffirm their support. A nurse came in then, checking Claire's vitals and adjusting her pain medication. She smiled at Nathan with the kind of familiarity that suggested he'd been a permanent fixture in this room for the past day and a half. You should get some rest too, Mr. Calloway, the nurse said gently. Your wife needs to sleep and you look like you haven't closed your eyes since you brought her in. I'm fine, Nathan said automatically. You're not. Claire squeezed his hand. Go home, shower, sleep in an actual bed. I'll still be here when you get back. Nathan looked like he wanted to argue, but exhaustion was carved into every line of his face. 2 hours, he finally agreed. I'll be back in 2 hours. 4, Claire countered, and that's non-negotiable. He left reluctantly, and Claire let herself drift in the haze of pain medication. She woke to find Diane sitting in the chair Nathan had vacated, knitting something that looked like it might become a scarf. You're awake, Diane said, setting aside her needles. How are you feeling? Like I got shot. That's because you did. Very dramatically, I might add. The whole ballroom is still talking about it. Diane's expression softened. That was incredibly brave and incredibly stupid, throwing yourself in front of that gun. I didn't really think about it. I just moved. That's what love does. Makes us do impossibly stupid things without hesitation. Diane reached over and patted Claire's hand. I knew from the first time I saw you two together that this was more than the business arrangement Nathan claimed. The way he looked at you, the way you looked at him, that's not something you can fake. Did everyone else know too? Some suspected, but Nathan's very good at hiding what he feels, and you were learning from the best. Diane picked up her knitting again, her needles clicking softly. Victoria knew, though. That's why she targeted you. She understood that hurting you was the fastest way to destroy Nathan. Claire thought about Victoria's rage in those final moments, the desperation that had driven her to pull a gun in front of hundreds of witnesses. She really thought she deserved to lead the family. She did deserve it, in some ways. Victoria was brilliant, ruthless, capable of everything Marcus valued in a leader. But she was also unstable, too willing to burn everything down if she couldn't have control. Nathan understands something Victoria never did, that real power comes from building things, not destroying them. Over the next few days, Claire's room became a parade of visitors. Family members she barely knew stopped by to pay their respects, to thank her for her loyalty to Nathan, to assess whether she was really as devoted as she appeared. Claire played her role perfectly, the loving wife who'd taken a bullet for her husband and watched as skepticism turned to acceptance in their eyes. Thomas came too, escorted by his doctors, and looking simultaneously terrified and amazed to see his sister in a hospital bed. "You got shot," he said, his small hand gripping hers, "like in the movies." "It's not as cool as the movies make it look," Claire assured him. "It actually hurts a lot." "Nathan said you saved his life." Thomas's eyes were wide. "He said you were the bravest person he'd ever met." "Nathan talks too much." But her heart warmed at the thought of Nathan talking to her brother, of the two most important people in her life building a connection. Thomas chatted about his treatment, about how his numbers kept improving, about the new friend he'd made in the children's ward. Claire soaked up every word, grateful beyond measure that her sacrifice had given him this chance at life. Nathan returned exactly 4 hours after he'd left, showered and changed, but still looking haunted. He sat beside her bed and took her hand without a word, his thumb finding the pulse point at her wrist, like he needed the physical proof that she was alive. "I can't stop seeing it," he said quietly. "You falling, the blood, the way you looked at me right before you passed out." "I'm okay, Nathan. I'm right here." "You shouldn't have to be here. You shouldn't have been in danger at all." His grip tightened. "I brought you into this world, Claire. I threatened you into marrying me, and then I let you get hurt because I was too stubborn to reveal the truth about my recovery sooner. If I'd just stood up, if I'd shown Victoria I wasn't weak, she would have found another way to come at you," Claire interrupted. "Victoria's anger wasn't about your wheelchair. It was about power, about feeling cheated out of something she believed was hers. You could have been an Olympic athlete and she still would have tried to destroy you." Nathan was quiet for a long moment. "The marriage contract," he said finally. "The one you signed. It stipulates that after succession is secured, we divorce and you receive a settlement." Claire's heart clenched. "Succession is secured now." "Yes, which means legally you're free to go. I can have the lawyers draw up divorce papers, transfer the funds we agreed upon, make sure Thomas's treatment is covered for life. You can walk away from all of this, Claire. Build the quiet life you deserved before I dragged you into my nightmare." The offer should have been tempting. Freedom from the violence and danger that came with being a Calloway. A chance to be just Claire Bennett again, nurse and sister and normal person living a normal life. But looking at Nathan, at the man who'd somehow become her partner, her confidant, her love, Claire knew what her answer would be. "What if I don't want to walk away?" she asked quietly. Nathan's eyes snapped to hers, hope and fear warring in their depths. "Claire, I know what I signed up for initially. I know this started as a transaction, but it's not that anymore, Nathan. It hasn't been for a long time." Claire laced her fingers through his. "I love you. I'm in love with you. And I don't want a divorce. I want this to be real." "You have no idea what you're saying. The life I lead, the things I'll have to do as head of this family, I know exactly what I'm saying. I've spent the last 2 months learning your world, understanding the choices you have to make. I'm not naive anymore, Nathan. I see you clearly, all of you, the good and the terrible, and I'm choosing you anyway." Nathan made a sound that was half laugh, half sob. "You're completely insane." "Probably, but so are you for falling in love with me." "That happened the night of the first gala," Nathan admitted, "when you stood up to Victoria and refused to be intimidated. I looked at you and thought, this woman is going to ruin me completely. And I was right." He kissed her then, careful of her injuries, his hands cradling her face like she was something precious and breakable. Claire kissed him back and felt something settle in her chest, some missing piece clicking into place. "We're really doing this?" Nathan whispered against her lips. "Making this marriage real? We're really doing this. Then there's something I need to do properly." Nathan pulled back, his expression turning serious. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a ring. Not the platinum band she wore from their contract wedding, but something else entirely. A sapphire, the color of midnight, surrounded by diamonds that caught the light. "This was my grandmother's," Nathan said. "The only woman Marcus ever loved, the only person who could make him laugh. She wore this ring for 50 years, and when she died, she made him promise to give it to whoever I truly loved." He slid it onto Claire's finger beside her wedding band. "I want you to have it, not because a contract says you're my wife, but because you chose to be. Because you saw every dark part of me and decided I was worth fighting for anyway." Claire looked at the ring through tears. "It's beautiful." "So are you, inside and out. You're the best thing that ever happened to me, Claire, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret choosing this." The doctors released Claire a week later with strict instructions about physical therapy and taking it easy. Nathan had the mansion's east wing converted into a recovery suite, complete with medical equipment and a nurse on staff, though Claire insisted she could manage most of her care herself. "You were shot because of me," Nathan said when she protested. "Let me take care of you." So Claire let him. Let him help her with exercises, brought her meals when she was too tired to come downstairs, sat with her during the long, boring hours of recovery. They talked about everything: his childhood growing up in the family business, her dreams of becoming a doctor before student loans made it impossible, the future they wanted to build together. "I want to expand the foundation," Nathan said one afternoon, spread out on the bed beside her with financial reports scattered around them. "Marcus started it as a tax shelter, but we could make it legitimate, actually help people." "What kind of help?" "Medical care for families who can't afford it, scholarships for kids from neighborhoods like the one you grew up in, job training programs to give people alternatives to crime." Nathan looked at her. "I know I can't erase the harm this family has caused, but maybe I can start balancing the scales." "That's a good start," Claire agreed. "What about the illegal operations?" "I'm phasing them out. Slowly, carefully, so we don't create power vacuums that other families will fill. But within 5 years, I want Callaway interests to be completely legitimate. Real estate, shipping, investments, all above board, all legal." "That's ambitious." "I have an ambitious wife who makes me want to be better than I am." Nathan's hand found hers. "You changed me, Claire. Made me see possibilities I'd given up on." Claire was cleared for full activity 6 weeks after the shooting. Her shoulder still ached sometimes, especially when it rained, but the doctors said she'd heal completely. The scar would remain, a permanent reminder of the night everything changed. The family held a formal ceremony to officially recognize Nathan's leadership. No wheelchair this time, just Nathan standing tall in front of the assembled families and accepting the responsibilities Marcus had left him. Claire stood beside him, wearing the sapphire ring and a dress the color of midnight, and felt pride swell in her chest. This man, this complicated, dangerous, brilliant man, was hers, and she was his. The Donnelly family attended, pledging their continued support. So did the Morettis and the Lees and all the other families that made up Chicago's power structure. They'd seen Nathan prove himself through strategy and strength, seen Claire's loyalty, and decided that betting against them was a losing proposition. Even the families that had sided with Victoria came back into the fold, offering apologies and promises of fealty. Nathan accepted them cautiously, keeping potential threats close where he could watch them. "Trust but verify," he told Claire later. "That's how we stay alive in this world." 3 months after the shooting, Nathan took Claire to visit Thomas at the Chamberlain Institute. Her brother's latest scans showed no signs of cancer. Complete remission, the doctors said with genuine excitement. He'd need monitoring for years, but the prognosis was excellent. "I'm going home soon," Thomas told them, bouncing with excitement. "Real home, not hospital home, and the doctor said I can go back to school." Claire hugged him carefully, overwhelmed with relief and joy. This was what she'd sacrificed everything for, what she'd married a stranger and walked into danger for. Thomas's life, his future, his chance to be a normal kid again. "We have a surprise for you," Nathan said. "When you're discharged, you're not going back to your old apartment. You're coming to live with us. We've set up a room for you at the mansion. Gaming systems, comic books, everything an 8-year-old could want. And Claire will be there every day." Thomas's eyes went wide. "Really? I can live with you." "Really?" Claire confirmed, her throat tight with emotion. "We're a family now, all 3 of us." Thomas launched himself at Nathan, hugging him with the unselfconscious affection of childhood. Nathan's arms came around him, and Claire saw tears in his eyes. This man who'd built walls around his heart, learning to let people in. They brought Thomas home 2 weeks later. Watching him explore the mansion, his delighted shouts echoing through halls that had been silent for too long, Claire felt something shift. This place had been a prison when she first arrived, then a battlefield. Now it was becoming a home. Nathan threw himself into running the family with the same strategic brilliance he'd used to survive Victoria's coup. He renegotiated contracts, forged new alliances, and slowly transformed Callaway operations from criminal enterprise to legitimate business empire. It wasn't easy. There were setbacks and challenges, families who resisted change, and moments when violence seemed like the only solution. But Nathan had Claire beside him now, offering perspectives he'd never considered, pushing him toward solutions that didn't involve bloodshed. Together, they were better than either could have been alone. The Callaway Foundation expanded rapidly under their joint leadership. They opened medical clinics in underserved neighborhoods, funded scholarships for promising students, and created job training programs that gave people real alternatives to crime. Claire used her nursing background to advise on medical initiatives, while Nathan used his business acumen to ensure everything was sustainable and effective. "Look at this," Claire said one evening, showing Nathan the latest report. "The clinic in Englewood treated over 500 patients last month. 500 people who wouldn't have had access to healthcare otherwise." "That's because of you," Nathan said, pulling her into his arms. "Your vision, your compassion. I just write the checks." "You do more than that, and you know it." Claire kissed him softly. "We're making a difference, Nathan. Really making a difference." 6 months after Victoria's death, on a crisp spring morning, Nathan gathered the family in the mansion's great room for an announcement. "Thank you all for coming," he said, standing at the head of the table with Claire beside him. "I know these past months have been tumultuous. We've lost people we loved, faced challenges that tested us, and had to adapt to new leadership. But we're stronger now than we've ever been." He pulled out a stack of documents, distributing them around the table. "These are the final contracts transferring our remaining illegal operations to new owners. As of today, Callaway Family Business is 100% legitimate. We're out of the underworld completely." Shocked murmurs ran around the table. Some family members looked relieved, others looked concerned. "This is what Marcus wanted," Nathan continued. "What he spent the last decade working toward. A family business that could survive scrutiny, that could be passed down to future generations without the constant threat of RICO prosecution or gang wars. We've achieved that." "What about the families who won't like us going legitimate?" Uncle Robert asked. "Who'll see it as weakness?" "They can see it however they want," Nathan said calmly. "We're not leaving the city, not giving up our influence. We'll still be a force in Chicago, just a legal one. Anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with our lawyers instead of our soldiers." Claire watched the family absorb this information, saw the moment they decided to trust Nathan's vision. He'd proven himself over and over, and they were finally ready to follow where he led. That night, alone in the bedroom they now shared, Nathan pulled Claire close and breathed in the scent of her hair. "We did it," he murmured. "Got out clean. Built something legitimate." "You did it," Claire corrected. "I just helped. You did more than help. You showed me it was possible, that I could be more than what I was raised to be." Nathan's hand found hers, their fingers intertwining. "I love you, Claire Callaway, more than I thought I was capable of loving anyone. I love you too, even though you threatened me into marriage and turned my life completely upside down." "Best decision I ever made," Nathan said with a smile. "Marrying you." "Second best," Claire countered. "The best decision was choosing to trust me, to let me in, to build something real with me instead of keeping it transactional." They made love that night with the tenderness of people who'd survived hell together and come out stronger. Claire traced the scars on Nathan's back from the accident that had nearly killed him. Nathan kissed the scar on Claire's shoulder where she'd taken a bullet meant for him. Their bodies told the story of their journey, the pain, the sacrifice, the transformation. 1 year after their contract wedding, they held a second ceremony. This one was their choice, their commitment, spoken in front of family and friends who knew the real story. Thomas was the ring bearer, grinning as he carried the pillow down the aisle. Diane cried happy tears. The family, now fully legitimate, fully transformed, celebrated the union of the two people who'd made that transformation possible. I, Nathan Calloway, take you, Claire Bennett, to be my lawfully wedded wife, Nathan said, his voice steady and sure. Not because a contract says so, but because I choose you. Every day for the rest of my life, I choose you. I, Claire Bennett, take you, Nathan Calloway, to be my lawfully wedded husband, Claire replied, tears streaming down her face. I choose you too. The man you are, the man you're becoming, the future we're building together. They kissed as husband and wife, really married this time, bound by love instead of necessity, and the applause was deafening. 2 years later, Claire stood in front of a building in downtown Chicago, watching workers hang a sign, Calloway Medical Center, providing quality health care for all. It's perfect, she said, watching the letters catch the afternoon sun. Nathan's arm came around her waist. It's your dream. You wanted to be a doctor, to help people. This is the next best thing. It's better than being a doctor. This is helping hundreds of people, thousands eventually. Claire leaned into his warmth. Thank you for making it possible. We made it possible together. The medical center opened to overwhelming demand. People came from all over Chicago, drawn by the promise of quality care regardless of their ability to pay. Claire oversaw operations using everything she'd learned as a nurse and everything she'd learned as a Calloway to run the place efficiently and compassionately. Thomas, now 11 and cancer-free, volunteered at the center after school. He brought joy to the pediatric ward, talking to kids going through what he'd survived, giving them hope that life existed beyond hospital walls. I want to be a doctor when I grow up, Thomas told Claire one afternoon. Like you wanted to be. But I'm actually going to do it. You will, Claire said with absolute certainty. You can do anything, Thomas. You beat cancer. You survived when the odds said you shouldn't. If you can do that, you can definitely get through medical school. The Calloway empire thrived under Nathan's leadership. The legitimate businesses expanded internationally. The foundation became one of the most respected charitable organizations in Illinois. And Nathan himself transformed from feared criminal heir to respected business leader, the man who'd pulled his family out of darkness and into light. On the 3rd anniversary of their real wedding, Nathan surprised Claire with a trip to the hospital rooftop where Thomas had recovered. They stood at the railing, looking out over Chicago as the sun set and painted everything gold. I've been thinking, Nathan said, pulling a folder from his jacket. That's usually dangerous, Claire teased. I want to formally adopt Thomas. Make him my son legally, not just in practice. Nathan opened the folder, showing her the adoption papers. I know he's your brother, but he's also the closest thing I'll ever have to a child of my own. I want him to be a Calloway, to inherit everything we've built, to know he's loved and wanted and part of this family. Claire's vision blurred with tears. He'd love that. You're already the father figure he never had. Is that a yes? That's a hell yes. Claire threw her arms around Nathan's neck, kissing him with all the love and gratitude she felt. You're a good man, Nathan Calloway. Despite everything, despite where you came from, you're good. I'm trying to be. Every day I'm trying to be worthy of you and Thomas, worthy of the second chance you gave me. They told Thomas that night. He cried happy tears and hugged Nathan so tight Claire thought they might both break. The adoption went through 6 months later, and Thomas Bennett became Thomas Calloway, heir to a business empire built on second chances and redemption. 5 years after the night Claire had walked into the Calloway mansion as a terrified bride, she stood in the same ballroom where Victoria had died. But tonight was different. Tonight was celebration. The annual Calloway Foundation Gala had evolved into Chicago's premier charitable event. The city's elite filled the ballroom, politicians, business leaders, philanthropists, all there to support the foundation's work. The same space that had witnessed violence and death now hosted hope and healing. Nathan stood to give his speech, and Claire watched from her seat with pride swelling in her chest. He'd come so far from the cold, threatening man in the wheelchair. Now he stood tall and confident, speaking about the foundation's achievements with genuine passion. 5 years ago, this family was at a crossroads, Nathan said. We could continue down the path of violence and criminality, or we could choose something different. Thanks to many people in this room, but especially to my wife Claire, we chose different. He gestured for Claire to join him. She rose from her seat, moving to his side, and he took her hand. Claire taught me that real strength isn't about intimidation or violence, Nathan continued. It's about building things that last, helping people who need it, using power to heal instead of harm. Because of her vision and compassion, the Callaway Foundation has provided healthcare to over 50,000 people, funded scholarships for 200 students, and created job opportunities for thousands of families. The applause was thunderous. Claire saw faces of the crowd, people whose lives had been changed by the foundation's work, kids who'd received scholarships, families who'd accessed healthcare they couldn't afford elsewhere. This was legacy. This was what mattered. So tonight, Nathan said, I want to announce our newest initiative. The Thomas Callaway Pediatric Cancer Center, opening next year, will provide cutting-edge treatment to children fighting cancer, regardless of their family's ability to pay. Because every child deserves the chance my son had, the chance to fight, to survive, to thrive. Thomas stood up from his seat, now a confident teenager who'd beaten the odds and was thriving. The crowd gave him a standing ovation, and Claire watched her brother, her son now, legally and in her heart, accept the recognition with grace. After the gala, the family gathered in the mansion's library, the core group who'd survived everything. Nathan and Claire, Thomas, Diane, Uncle Robert, and a few others who'd proven their loyalty. To Marcus, Nathan said, raising his glass, who started this family on the path to legitimacy, even if he didn't live to see it completed. To Marcus, they echoed. And to Claire, Diane added, who saved us all by teaching Nathan how to love. To Claire, the family repeated. Claire felt warmth flood through her. These people, this strange, complicated family, had become hers in ways she never could have imagined. They'd tested her, threatened her, and ultimately accepted her, and she'd helped transform them from criminals into something better. Later, in the quiet of their bedroom, Nathan held Claire close and breathed in the scent of her hair. Do you ever regret it? He asked quietly. That night I forced you to marry me? The life you gave up? Claire thought about the scared, desperate girl she'd been, drowning in debt, watching her brother die, seeing no way out. Then she thought about who she was now, confident, loved, making a real difference in the world. Not for a second, she said honestly. You gave me Thomas's life. You gave me purpose. You gave me love I didn't know I was capable of feeling. Yes, you threatened me into marriage. Yes, it was the worst possible beginning. But Nathan, look what we built from that. Look at the lives we've changed. We did build something beautiful, didn't we? We built something real, something that matters. Claire turned in his arms to face him. I love you. I love the man you've become, the father you are to Thomas, the leader you've chosen to be. I love all of it. Nathan kissed her, deep and slow and full of promise. I love you too. My wife, my partner, my salvation. They made love that night with the ease of people who knew each other completely, who'd survived hell together and chosen each other anyway. And afterward, wrapped in Nathan's arms, Claire thought about the journey that had brought them here. She'd been forced into a marriage with a stranger. That stranger had become her partner, then her love, then her husband in truth. Together, they'd faced down danger, transformed a criminal empire, and built something good from darkness. The girl who'd walked into the Callaway mansion terrified and alone was gone. In her place was a woman who'd found her strength, her purpose, her home. Claire Callaway, wife, mother, philanthropist, survivor, had everything she'd never dared to dream of. And it had all started with an impossible choice and a dangerous man who'd somehow become her happy ending. Years later, when Thomas graduated from medical school and began his residency at the very hospital where Claire had once worked, she stood with Nathan and watched their son, brilliant, compassionate, cancer-free, begin his journey to heal others. We did good, Nathan murmured, his arm around Claire's waist. We did, Claire agreed, watching Thomas laugh with his colleagues. We did really good. From forced marriage to real love. From criminal empire to legitimate business. From violence to healing. From darkness to light. The Callaway family's transformation was complete, built on the foundation of two people who'd chosen love over fear, hope over despair, building over destroying. And in the end, that made all the difference.